Hello and welcome to Drunk on Tea. Today I'm going to show you how to paint this Tyranid model in the style of Hive Fleet Behemoth. So as you can see, I've primed the model black, as this will give us a nice smooth, even base coat for the rest of our colours to work from. Now the first thing I'm doing is I'm coming in with some Mephiston red, and I'm going to paint all of the skin to the model. This is going to take a couple of layers to build up to a solid coat of Mephiston red all over the skin. Just make sure you catch all of the skin to the Tyranid with a couple of layers of Mephiston red. I'm also going to catch the weapon in his hands as well, making sure I catch this with a couple of layers of Mephiston red as well. Doesn't matter if you get any of this over areas like the Carapace armour and things like that, because the method we're going to be using for painting this skin is going to be quite messy, and no doubt we'll paint over those areas anyway. So just work in a couple of thin layers and build up to a solid coat of Mephiston red all over the skin to the model, ensuring you work this into all of the recesses so we get that solid coat of Mephiston red all over the skin. Mephiston red is a really good base coat for Hive Fleet Behemoth because it gives us that really nice rich red colour that's so iconic for this Hive Fleet of Tyranids. And after a couple of coats of Mephiston red, you see I've got a solid base coat all over the model. So now it's going to be time to shade that skin. For the shade, I'm coming in with some Carapace crimson, and I'm going to shade this all over the model. You want this to sink into all of the recesses to add that definition to the skin of the model, but you don't want it to pull too heavily, so if at any point while applying the shade you realise it is pooling a little bit into a recess, you can wick some of that away with a dry brush so you don't get any areas that are too dark. Just make sure you shade all of the skin to the model with some Carapace crimson. This shade works really well over the red to give us a really nice rich deep colour, will really help give us that Hive Fleet Behemoth look. And after the shade has dried, you can see it's settled into all of those recesses and added definition all over the model, but it's also darkened down the skin a little bit. So I'm coming in with some Mephiston red now, and I'm going to brighten the skin up. I'm applying this as a dry brush. I'm just going to dry brush this all over the skin to the Tyranid. So this will catch on all the flat and raised surfaces, bringing them back up to that brighter Mephiston red colour, but leaving our Carapace crimson showing in all of the recesses and keeping that definition that we've built up from the shade. So with a couple of layers, just slowly build up this Mephiston red dry brush over all of those raised details till we've picked out all of the details and brought them back up to a much brighter Mephiston red colour. And after that dry brush, you can see we've brightened up the skin to the Tyranid and picked out all of those raised details. So now it's time to apply another dry brush to the skin, and that will be with some Gearhead orange. I'm going to apply this much lighter now, just in a vertical motion from the top to the bottom, and this will pick out those most raised and upwards facing details on the Tyranid and brighten them up as well. Now by doing this dry brush, it's much quicker than if we were to do this by painting on layers of paint to pick out all of the details, and allows us to get the skin done nice and quickly before moving on to the rest of the details on our Tyranid. So just apply a light dry brush of Gearhead orange in a vertical motion to pick out all of those raised vertical surfaces. And after that dry brush of Gearhead orange, you can see we've picked out all of those details, brightened up the skin, and that was really giving it that Hive Fleet Behemoth look. So now I'm coming in with some Incubi Darkness, and for this I'm going to paint it all over the Carapace. So be really careful around all the skin we've already painted and highlighted, but pick out all of the parts of Carapace armour with a couple of layers of Incubi Darkness. This colour will give us a really nice rich greeny blue colour to the Carapace armour, which once we add highlights at a later step, will really make this Carapace pop. Obviously don't forget areas on the Carapace here, like on his head. It's also got some on his guns and his legs as well. Make sure you catch all of these with a couple of layers of Incubi Darkness, so we've got a solid base coat over all of these areas of Carapace armour. And with the Incubi Darkness, I'm also picking out any of the claws, his hooves, and any fingernails on the model as well. I'm going to make sure I catch all of these with a layer of Incubi Darkness. And with that Incubi Darkness applied, you can see we've broken up that red colour to the Tyranid and added interest all over the model. Next thing I'm going to pick out is the little tubing going to his gun. For this, I'm using Bugman's Glow. I'm just going to apply a couple of layers of Bugman's Glow to this little bit of tubing going to his weapon, being nice and careful around all the areas we've already painted and highlighted, but just catching this tube with a layer of Bugman's Glow. And with the Bugman's Glow applied, that's a little bit of tubing on the model painted. Next thing I'm going to pick out are the teeth to the Tyranid. For these, I'm coming in with some Rawk stone. I'm just going to really carefully pick out these teeth with a small line of Rawk stone. Obviously, you don't want to get this over any other details, just the teeth, but make sure you pick these out with a base coat of Rawk stone. And with those teeth picked out, that is all the base coats applied to the model. So the next step is I'm going to shade the areas we've just painted. So the first shade I'm coming in with is some Reichland Flesh shade. I'm going to apply this over the Bugman's Glow we painted on the tubing. Just going to catch this with a shade of Bugman's Glow. Don't forget the bit on the other side and between his arms. Make sure you catch this with some Bugman's Glow. And with some Agrax Earth shade, I'm going to shade all of the Carapace armour, being nice and careful around the skin, ensuring I just get this over the Carapace, sort of sink into those recesses, and add definition to all of the Carapace armour on the model. Don't forget the ones on his head and his gun as well. Make sure you shade all of the Carapace with the Agrax Earth shade as well. Catch all of the Incubi Darkness. Make sure you also catch the claws with some Agrax Earth shade. I'm also going to catch his teeth as well. If you enjoyed the video, please press like. If you want more videos, press the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. If you would like to support the channel and become a member, please press the join button down below. And after those shades have dried, you can see it's added definition to the tubing, the Carapace and his teeth. So now it's time to start highlighting these areas. First thing I'm going to highlight is the Carapace. And for this, I'm coming in with some Thousand Suns blue. So with the Thousand Suns blue, you want to apply a chunky edge highlight around the edge of all of the Carapace armour panels. So I'm tracing around the edge here with the Thousand Suns blue, applying an edge highlight, and I'm also going to apply some vertical lines near the edges of each of the plates, which will give us that distinctive Tyranid look. So take your time at this stage, work your way around the model, and apply a chunky edge highlight of Thousand Suns blue to the edge of all of the Carapace armour panels on the model, whilst doing the same to the ones on his head here. See, I'm catching all the raised details and adding a small vertical line at the edges of all of the plates. So you want to apply this as a chunky edge highlight, so we can come back in a minute and apply a really thin edge highlight within this Thousand Suns blue. I'm also going to apply an edge highlight to all of the claws and the hooves on the model as well. I'm just catching these with a chunky highlight of Thousand Suns blue. And with that Thousand Suns blue applied, you can see it's added pop of colour to that Carapace armour. Works really well with the Incubi darkness. So now I'm coming in with some Temple Guard blue, and for this I'm going to apply a really thin edge highlight within the Thousand Suns blue we just applied. So I'm going to leave a little bit of the Thousand Suns blue showing through at the sides as I apply this thin edge highlight of Temple Guard blue, going all the way around the edges of all of the Carapace armour panels. And where we've got these vertical lines at the edges of all the panels, I'm just applying a small line within those, but not quite to the full length. So these two colours will work really well together and give a really nice highlight to all of this Carapace. So once again, just take your time at this stage, work your way around the model and apply a really thin edge highlight of Temple Guard blue in the middle of all the areas that we just applied the Thousand Suns blue. So on areas here like the one on his top of his head, keeping these lines really thin and really neat, just applying them in the middle of where I applied that Thousand Suns blue in the previous step, just applying a really thin edge highlight of Temple Guard blue in the middle of that Thousand Suns blue. And I'm also going to do the same to all of the claws and the hooves as well, just applying a small thin edge highlight of Temple Guard blue in the middle of all the areas that we applied the Thousand Suns blue. These two colours are going to work really well together and give us a really good pop of colour all over the model. And with that Temple Guard blue applied, you can see it's really added that pop of colour, really made that Carapace stand out, giving it a really good alien appearance. So the next thing I'm going to highlight is tube going to his gun. So for this I'm coming in with Bugman's Glow first. I'm just going to apply it in the areas that the shade didn't settle on that tubing. So where the Reikland Flesh shade has settled in all of the recesses, I'm coming back into all the flat areas, bringing them back up to that brighter colour with a thin layer of Bugman's Glow. And Bugman's Glow has brightened up those areas of tubing, brought them back up to their original colour. So now I'm coming in with some Cadian Flesh Tone. I'm going to keep this nice and thin, and I'm just going to apply this in the middle of the areas that we just applied the Bugman's Glow. By having this nice and thin, it'll give us a nice transition to a bright highlight on all of these areas of tubing, so just apply a bit of Cadian flesh tone in the middle of the Bugman's glow we just applied. And that Cadian flesh tone has brightened up the central parts of those tubing just a little bit. So there's just one final colour to add to these tubes, and that's some pallid witch flesh, which I'm just going to apply to the very top spiky bits of the tube, and I'm also going to apply a small spot in the middle of where we just applied the Cadian flesh tone in the previous step. And this will work really well to give us a nice bright highlight on these fleshy tube parts. And with the pallid witch flesh applied, that is the tubing to the gun highlighted. Now there's only a couple of details left to paint on this Tyranid. So for the next step, I'm coming in with some Screaming Skull, and I'm just going to apply this to the teeth of the model. So I'm just applying a really fine highlight to the very tips of the teeth. Just give the impression of being nice and sharp and make them stand out in the mouth. Just keep these nice and small and just apply a line to the very tips of all the teeth in the mouth of the Tyranid. And with the teeth highlighted, there's only one final step left to apply to this Tyranid, and that is going to be to paint the eyes on the model. So for the eyes, I'm coming in with some Avalan Sunset. I'm going to very carefully sink this into the recesses of the eye sockets. Just keeping this Avalan Sunset nice and thin and just sinking it into those recesses on his face. And he's also got an eye on the gun as well. So I'm going to pick this out with a layer of Avalan Sunset as well. This yellow will really make these eyes pop out against the red skin on the model. And with the Avalan Sunset applied, you can see it's really given an alien look to those eyes. So now I'm coming in with some Abaddon Black, and I'm going to apply this as a small vertical line in the middle of the Avalan Sunset we just applied. For the ones on his face, I'm keeping these nice and small and just applying a vertical line in the middle of the Avalan Sunset. So this will give a nice impression of a pupil in these eyes. And I'm doing a line in the middle of the one on his gun as well, going from top to bottom as a vertical line of Abaddon Black. And with all of the pupils painted, there's one final step left to apply just to the eye on the gun, and that's going to be with some white scar. I'm just going to add a small spot off to the right hand side of the Abaddon Black. This will give the impression of light reflecting off a point on the eye. And with that white scar applied, that is how to paint a Tyranid model for Hive Fleet Behemoth in a really quick, easy and striking paint style. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know in the comments down below, are there any other Hive Fleets you would like to see me paint? But don't forget to like and subscribe, and happy painting!